We don't want to travel to another country. We want to be in our home. Please, I'm asked, please stop this war.
That woman left her home in Kyiv with her husband. She's one of thousands pouring into the Warsaw train station in Poland. Volunteers there say the community's generosity is immense, but so is the influx of people, and resources are simply running out. More than 2.3 million refugees have fled Ukraine since the start of the war, the majority of them going to Poland, and Canada is promising to bring in an unlimited number of them. Sean Fraser is the Minister of Immigration and Refugees. He's joining us now from New Glasgow, Nova Scotia. Minister, good to see you as always. Thank you so much for making the time.
A pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I wanted to start off on that concept of unlimited. And one of our producers, Paul, yesterday was in communication with your department. I was thinking, hey, let's find out how many people have come since you made that announcement last week or over the past little while. I know last week when you were here, you said it was about 6,100. It's now about 7,400 Ukrainians have arrived in Canada since January 1st. Break that down over 10 weeks, you're looking at somewhere between 700 and 750 a week. Once this application, the new pathways open up, by how much do you expect that to increase? Like, are you thinking it's going to stick around somewhere the same, or do you expect a dramatic increase?
It's really hard to say, and I appreciate that you'd like to have some certainty, but it's driven by factors that are up to the individual families and people who have just fled Ukraine. Many of them have access to other countries in Europe, immediately to the west, or throughout neighboring countries. But just to put it into perspective, there are 7,423 here now. The inventory of applications to come here is about 7,100 in addition to that. We're seeing hundreds more of applications come in every day. And it's hard to know with certainty whether there's going to be a rush for a few days at the beginning and it may peter out subsequently, or as more people become aware of the program over time, it'll build. And we're going to be in a position to respond to whatever demand we receive. But I don't want to project what pattern we may see until the data on the ground demonstrates it.
Okay, understood. Let me ask you then again about the capacity or that concept of unlimited. Is it actually unlimited? And I'm asking because there must be some sort of ceiling. I mean, you're familiar with your department, you know its capacity. I know this is different. It's not the same type of application. It's not the same type of process. But certainly, you know, there's X amount of dollars, I think 117 million, your government announced today. There must be some sort of cap. Can you be transparent with Canadians about what that cap is?
Well, look, there really isn't a cap on the number of applications that we're willing to accept. And the reason I can tell you that in good faith is we've made a deliberate decision to base this new stream on the way that we welcome visitors to Canada. The system as it exists in the absence of a humanitarian crisis has the capacity to process in excess of 2 million applications annually. To the extent that we see numbers grow beyond the 7,000 that have already arrived and an additional 7,000 that are there, we're nowhere near reaching the limit of the horsepower that our system has to process people who are not coming to be resettled permanently, but are coming on a temporary basis, even though it may be a significantly extended temporary stay. So we're serious when we say that we're not placing a cap on the number of applications we're willing to accept, and we're going to do everything we can to not just ensure they get here, but they succeed once they arrive.
How are you so certain that it's temporary? And I know that obviously you're watching what I am. Most Ukrainians, given the opportunity, they will go back, for sure. We hear the interviews day in and day out. But we can't be certain, can we, that they will have that opportunity given the aggression that Putin is showing and the sort of level of the invasion at this point. So how do you know it's going to be temporary, pardon me?
Look, there are no certainties in war, and we have to address the realistic possibility that a significant number of people are going to want to come to Canada and stay in Canada. We are actually building in a feature to our program to specifically allow for people to become permanent residents through a family sponsorship program that we're working on developing as we speak. But the realistic scenario that I'm looking at is the fact that people who come into Canada on a temporary basis can actually apply to become permanent residents in Canada once they arrive. We're going to be dealing with a significant number of people who are not just coming, but are being given work permits that are going to be making contributions to our community. To the extent that they would like to stay for the long term and become permanent residents, I think we need to be able to be flexible and potentially adjust our immigration levels plan over time to accommodate more people who want to come and make a contribution that have proven that they can integrate into our communities. This is the kind of thing that we're going to be prepared to respond to as those trends start to emerge. And to the extent that people want to come for an extended period of time or potentially permanently, we'll look at whatever options are necessary to make sure that we can provide safe haven at the very least for the time of this conflict and potentially for the long term.
I wonder, and I'm sure that you've received some of these emails as well. The situation isn't perfectly analogous, but my inbox is full of people asking, why is it that it seems, and not to take away from the humanitarian crisis Ukrainians face right now, but why is it that you're saying it's unlimited? They can stay for 2 years if they want, as you just pointed out, if they want to stay for more, we're going to make that happen. And there's no limit there. But there's 40,000, there's a number attached to the number of Afghan refugees. And there's only about 8,500 of them that have come since the end of August, or since August, versus 7,400 that have come in just the past 2.5 months from Ukraine. Can you address that concern?
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we reflect on the need to make sure that we're doing whatever we can to respond to different humanitarian crises around the world, and different scenarios require different solutions. With respect to Afghanistan, what motivated Canada's decision to launch what is one of the world's most substantial commitments to refugee resettlement is the fact that we have made specific commitments to many individuals who worked or served alongside Canada during its mission in Afghanistan. We want to make sure we can welcome as many of those individuals as possible and still make a contribution to the humanitarian resettlement effort. So we have put forward a public commitment to resettle 40,000 Afghan refugees. But one of the key differences between the approach in Afghanistan and the approach in Ukraine is the fact that when we resettle refugees, we plan to do it on a permanent basis. We're dealing with a situation where we don't expect very many or potentially any of the people who come to Canada are going to want to return to their homeland. This requires us to not just get people here quickly, but also to invest in the capacity of the settlement sector in Canada, which is stretched after many years of dealing with an influx of Syrian refugees who are making contributions to our community, and is now expected to welcome more Afghan refugees on a permanent basis. So it has to do with systems capacity, it has to do with the nature of the conflict, and it has to do with Canada's connection to the particular scenario in Ukraine and Afghanistan. But either way, we're going to do everything we can.
And I think I understand the contrast that you're making, but in the answer before that you gave me, you laid out that if Ukrainians wanted to stay here on a permanent basis, if it wasn't going to be temporary, that Canada would ensure that could happen. So it's really not as different of a situation perhaps as you're painting, right? Just because we know that those fleeing Afghanistan don't want to go back to Afghanistan, it could be the case that they don't end up being able to go back to Ukraine either, which again points to a discrepancy in even the verbiage around it. It's unlimited. We're giving you a pathway to come here for 2 years, a very easy process. We've got biometrics there. I understand on the ground in Afghanistan, of course, it's not, as I said, perfectly analogous, not even close to it to Ukraine, but there is a discrepancy there.
Look, there's no question that we're trying something new and completely innovative when it comes to responding to a humanitarian crisis in respect of the situation in Ukraine with the volumes of people we're seeing that are fleeing. But I'd point out as well, just to your point and the suggested discrepancy on the fact that Ukrainians may be able to apply for permanent residency once they're here. Afghans have that capacity as well. Now, there's logistical challenges on the ground that make it extremely difficult for people who are in a territory controlled by the Taliban to access a safe passage or an application process. But the opportunities for Ukrainians to resettle permanently beyond the family reunification program we're standing up, and we are doing something similar for the extended families of interpreters from Afghanistan who are here already. But for Afghans that want to participate in Canada's ordinary immigration programs, that's also an option over and above whatever refugee resettlement commitment we've made. We are trying something new in Ukraine, though, and to the extent that it's successful, it might be a potential model to respond to crises in the future.
Why didn't your government think of using something like that, something that innovative in Afghanistan?
Well, the circumstances are very, very unique when you're dealing with the the logistics on the ground are really, really challenging to stand up a program and to offer large numbers of people going through a biometric screening process when we don't have the ability to offer biometrics in the country, and people are
The
actually
UK, just, sorry to interrupt, but the UK just introduced a program where they're going to do biometrics for Ukrainians once they land. Could Canada not have done something like that?
Well, look, we're looking at different options right now, because one of the things that you want to do is to, and we have access to process Ukrainians through our existing presences in the region because we staff those positions up. We do want to make sure that we do a robust security screening process before people land to the extent that's possible. It's obviously preferable when you're screening for something as important as security to address that situation before you arrive, because if you do have somebody who faces danger if they're going to be returned to their homeland, there's international legal obligations that prevent you. It's the principle of non-refoulement that would prevent you from deporting person to a place where they'll face persecution or into a war zone, for example. These are the kinds of things that we look at every day in real time, and to the extent that new solutions emerge, we're going to keep an open mind to do whatever we can to offer a robust response to these humanitarian crises.
Okay, Minister, appreciate your time as always. Thank you.
The pleasure's all mine. Thanks so much for having me.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.